Yes friends, we are starting our lesson. First, we save our project. In the following sections, when downloading objects with the plugin called BlenderKit, it will be downloaded directly to the location of our Blender file in the form of a folder. Afterwards, we activate the cavity and bolt to make the details of our objects more clear. I set the measurement unit of our scene to centimeters. Since we will use ready-made objects here, we need to activate the BlenderKit plugin. Since I have installed it before, it appears directly when I search. If you don't have it, let us show you how you can download it. When you enter BlenderKit's website, we click on the Download BlenderKit option. Again, we download the current BlenderKit from here by clicking Download. When the download is completed, we transfer it as a zip file to a folder we specify. We go back to Blender and install it by selecting the zip file we downloaded by clicking Install. From here we activate the box by selecting it. If we have a membership, we can log in from the login section. If you want to get a membership, you can get a membership from the sign up section. If you want, you can access all files by purchasing the full plan package. Whatever you ask about the difference between free and paid membership, there are so many differences in content. Now we can design our room. We enter edit mode by selecting our cube. Here, we adjust the dimensions of our room completely freely, based on realistic measurements. We activate the edge length feature to see the dimensions of our room. The dimensions are now visible on the edges of our model. In this part, I move the surfaces left and right in a controlled manner by holding down the Control key. If you want, you can adjust the measurements by entering numbers directly. In this part, we add a small area by extruding from the edge of our room. And we adjust the dimensions of our room again. By making a new extrusion in the front part, we adjust the place where the light will enter from the front part. Afterwards, we adjust the floor height of our room. Floor height may vary. I usually do 300 centimeters. And now the real dimensions of our room appear. In this section, we turn the ceiling and ground floors of our room into separate objects from the separate section by pressing the P key. If we examine the separate menu, selection is used to separate the surfaces we select. By material separates the surfaces with the same materials on the object into one piece. By Loosen part turns objects that are independent from each other into separate objects. In this part, we determine the beam height of our room with loop cut. I set it to 30 centimeters. When I reach the bottom, I leave a margin of 15 centimeters. To create the empty part of our window, I determine the starting location with loop cut. Likewise, I determine the end part of our window this way. Now, I go to the face assembly and select the surface of our window that will be the gap, and remove the gap with extrude. I set the gap to 20 centimeters. I do the same for the window space in front. I move the triple slider to the back of our room and move our camera object here. After resetting the angle of our camera, I make it look straight ahead. After switching to the camera's point of view, we adjust the focal lens value to see our scene. On the other hand, I adjust the resolution of our camera and generally adjust the view and resolution settings of our camera. We bring back the ceiling and floor objects we had hidden to the stage. We separate ceiling and floor objects. We enter the edit mode by selecting our ceiling object and adjust the hidden lighting areas in this section. We make inserts by selecting the surfaces. As you can see, with the insertion process, we created the surfaces where the hidden light will be. We select the surfaces where the hidden lights will be and extrude them upwards. Now, by selecting our room, we enter the edit mode and adjust the places where the skirting board will be. I adjust the first protrusion part by extruding from bottom E. Don't forget to tick the offset event here. If you do not select it, the surfaces will not be extruded evenly. Again, I make a loop cut and extrude by determining the second place. Yes, we have generally finished the design process of our room. Now we can start adding our objects from BlenderKit. Since we are using the BlenderKit plugin in the free plan and we want only free models to appear when searching, we select from the search filter section of the BlenderKit menu. In this way, free models will be our priority when searching. Now, whatever model we want to add, I type the model name in the search box and free models appear. First, I want to add my scene by searching for SOFO models. If you want to get information about the models, just right-click on the model photo. To add your scene to the models, simply select the model photo and drag and drop it into your scene. Once the download is complete, the model will appear in your scene. Once the downloading of the model is complete, we can now place the model wherever we want in our scene. These models usually come with materials. Usually multi-piece models come depending on the MT model. Models with a higher number of particles can be selected more easily and make it easier to move them into our scene. I activate the snap to place our object directly on the ground and select them so that I can use them in move, rotation, and scale operations. We may need to make our chair a little more skillful depending on the structure of our room. We are making our seat smaller with some skill. We adjust the angle of our camera again. Since we want XAXE to look perpendicular to our scene, we set the view rotation X value to 90. We adjust the angle of our camera again. Since we want it to look perpendicular to our scene on the X-axis, I set the view rotation X value to 90. By going to the settings menu of our camera and playing with the Shift Y value, our cameras, I make it look a little higher without disturbing the right angles on the edge. Now I add a table to our scene. When adding objects to the scene, it would be better if you assign them to an empty area in a model download section. If you do it directly indoors like me, sometimes the rotation value may be different due to other objects. Generally, if you make lower V, you can make it flat by resetting the rotation value. This time, I select the face for snapping and move the model to the ground. We bring our object to the appropriate size by scaling it according to our scene. Now you have learned how to add a model to the scene. Here you can add your models to our scene according to your own taste. I'm adding a carpet model to the front to fill the stage. I adjust the carpet so that it fits under the table. We see that the foot of our table penetrates into the carpet. By activating the proportional editing feature in the Carpet Edit bot, we solve the problem of the table leg getting into the carpet by slightly moving it left and right. Now we are looking for a model suitable for our scene by searching for window models. We place our window model in the window gap and make it fill the entire gap by making a skill. We do the same process for the front window section. Yes, we have completed the working part in terms of design. Now we can move on to the lighting part. First, we add our auxiliary lights to our scene. I will use an Aria lamp in this part. We move 3 cursors to the hidden lamp sections we created in the previous section and add our Aria type lamp. We make a rectangle from the shape section in the settings section of our lamp. We adjust the X and Y values according to where we will add the lamp. I move our lamp down an inch to test it. I switch to the Cycles render engine from the render settings section. To get faster results, I'm switching to an NVIDIA-based graphics card. I reduce the port sample value to 100. I activate the denoise feature to eliminate noise. I choose a certain area so that only that angle is rendered so that we do not waste time with other parts. I change the timeline section below to shader editor. I select the use node option to use note schemes on the light object. We enter rendering mode and port to see the changes we will make next. For realistic lighting, we add the blackbody node to our light in the shader editor. With this node we can achieve realistic light tones. I will use the value 5500. You can see that we can get 5500 worth of light in very nice tones. I set the intensity of our light to 0.500. Now I move our lamp object up 1 centimeter again. Later, we will collectively adjust the position of our lights. Since we will be adding more than one object to our scene soon, I am collecting them all under a collection so that we can easily select them and keep them organized. Now all the lamp objects I copied will be collected in the collection I specified. After copying the lamp, I move 3 rostrums to the surface and move the lamp object there. When the transportation process is completed, I adjust the length of the lamp. Now, to select the lamps collectively, I open the Select Group menu and click Collection. Now all of my lamps are selected. I move my lamps down a centimeter. I switch to the camera angle to see it in the render. I am saving my project file in case the project crashes. I go into render mode and check my lights. Now I will do a test render. In order to get quick results, I make the sample value fine. I set the tile size value to 256 so that it renders 256 pixels each time. I press the render button and start the test render. Yes, our test render is finished. I can say that our auxiliary light objects work very well. Now we adjust the ground material. I call our material wood floor. In edit mode, I assign a UV map to our object by calling it cube projection. We will download our wooden flooring from the Polyheaven website. When we enter the texture section, we select wood from the floor section. As you can see from here, I choose the coding. You can download it in any resolution you want here. I'm downloading it in 4K. When the download is completed, I extract the zip file. In order to use the shortcut keys in the shader editor, you need to activate the Node Wrangle add-on. We enter the add-ons section. We type Node Wrangle instead of search and it appears. We confirm by selecting the box. Now we can close the window. After selecting the shader, we select our PBR overlay by pressing Ctrl-Shift-T and click on the button to make the connection. We have now made our PBR connections. Our material is before us. I set the UV scale value to 1.5. I can say that it looks a little better. Since I will not use the displacement texture here, I am deleting it. We bring our other objects back to our scene. Now we can move on to the outdoor lighting part. I switch to the word section from the shader editor. I switch to render mode from port. I produce one sky text and connect it. Now that there is lighting outside, the inside starts to look more lively. Now let's take a look at the sky texture settings here. Sun disk is used to turn the sun effect on and off. Offer to you. It is the sharpness setting of the sun. As our value decreases, the sun's shadow becomes sharper. Sun demand is the intensity of the sun's influence. As the value increases, the sun illuminates more effectively. Sun elevation, the angle of the sun in degrees. Adjusts the sun's temperature in degrees from sunrise to sunset. Sun rotation. We set the rotation of the sun in degrees. Entered the distance from one position of the camera to sea level. For example, if the camera is placed on a beach, the value 0 is used. However, if the camera is in the cockpit of an airplane, a value of 10 kilometers would be more appropriate. Remember, this is limited to 60 kilometers. Because the mathematical model only takes into account the first two layers of the Earth's atmosphere. Air is the density of air molecules. 0, no air. Clear day atmosphere. Highly polluted day. Dust is the density of dust and water droplets. 0, no dust. 1, clear day atmosphere. 5, city-like atmosphere. 10, misty days. Ozone. The density of ozone molecules is useful to make the sky appear bluer. No ozone, clear day atmosphere, city-like atmosphere. Yes, in general, we learned the settings of the SkyTech HUD. We can adjust our light with this information. Since we want more realistic light here, we have an add-on called Sun Position. We need to activate it. When we type sun instead, it comes directly and we activate it by selecting its box. We add a sun lamp to our scene. We go to sun position from where we made the word settings and select our sun lamp from the sun object section. We select our sky texture from sky texture. When you look at our scene, you can see that we have slightly more uniform lighting. First, we adjust the distance of our sun. I'm zooming in on my scene a little to see it more easily. In this part, I change the settings with a little trial and error until the light comes through the glass. Since I want a slightly softer sun effect, I lower the sun aesthetic value slightly. I'm trying to find realistic values suitable for my scene by playing with air and dust values. You can enter light information in terms of day and month from the sun position settings. I increase the contrast value slightly to see the colors a little more vividly. Now we are doing test rendering. Yes, our render looks fine. Now we are adjusting our rendering settings. You can set the output format to PNM or TIFF. I open some channels to use in Photoshop. Finally, I set the sample value to 500. Now let's take a quick look at our rendering settings and what we have done. First, we look at the word settings. We made the word settings this way. Afterwards, we used Cycles as the render engine. I choose my graphics card. We set our sample setting to 500. And from here, friends, we set our tile settings to 256. And when we come to our output settings, we set the output format as TIFF, our resolution, and when we come to the rendering channel section, I activate these channels. We can use them in Photoshop in the future. Afterwards, we made our sun position settings this way and we complete our render settings this way. We start our final rendering by pressing the render button. Yes, our rendering is finished. It took approximately 23 minutes. I can say that it is a very clean and beautiful result. We will go to the composite panel and get the printouts of the necessary channels from here. We activate the node schemes by clicking Use Node. First we save our render. In order to get a cleaner output, I denoise the other channels I will receive. Now I denoise the other channel. That's why I'm experimenting with the ambience occlusion channel. Now we can save and close Blender and move on to Photoshop. We open our render with Photoshop. We drag the other channels into Photoshop. This is how I do the sorting. The ambience of our channel for school did not have a very good effect for this work, so I am deleting it. Here we are trying to find the most appropriate mixing format to give reflection for glossy channels. We left only the glossy one and deleted the other channels. Looking at the scene, only a glossy one remained with our main render. We turn the channels into one piece. We do this by pressing the Ctrl, Shift, Alt and E buttons. Now we can turn on the Camera Raw filter. In the Camera Raw section, I try to bring our work to more realistic tones and add color tones to our work. I liven up the colors a bit in the contrast section. I turn the white tones on and off from the wireless section. I liven up our coatings a little more in the texture section. We animate our scene a little bit from the clarity section. It has similar aspects to the texture part. In this part, we add some sharpness to our work. From here, I brighten the colors we chose a little. If you want, you can add a slight black effect to the edges in this part. You can also adjust the temperature and cold balance from here. From this section, we can turn our lights on further and turn them off further if we wish. And in general, our camera raw settings are like this. I save these settings so I can use them later. We complete our work by clicking OK. Finally, you can print it as PNG by clicking Export. Yes, this is how we end our work. I hope you enjoyed watching. I really enjoyed doing it. If you are stuck on something, you can ask us in the comments section, or you can come to our Discord result and ask your questions from there. Take care, see you in the next videos.